Hi, this is Stacia, and I played a standard 15-minute, 10-second increment game on chess.com against tcassar. Um, in this game, I was rated 1529, which is a peak rating for me on chess.com, and tcassar is rated 1474. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the game. I opened with d4. He responded with knight f6. I went c4, just taking control of the center. And he responded with e6. So this game could go a lot of ways. The main move here, I believe, is knight f3. But knight c3 is also playable. I definitely like knight f3, though. And this stops the Nimzo-Indian, which I'm not really familiar with. Although sometimes I get tricked into it anyways. And from this position, this can go a lot of ways. Black can play d5, black can play b6, going into a Queen's Indian. This could go into a Catalan for me because I'll play g3. Black could also choose to do something like b4, bishop b4 check, which is a Bogo Indian. So a lot of different things. And my opponent chose the main move here, which is b6. And so we do have a Queen's Indian defense. I was a little nervous against this because I never really studied the Queen's Indian. I have a pretty good score against it, which is why I haven't studied it. But yeah, I just not really comfortable against it. Don't really know the plans. So, but let's see how this goes. All right, so I played the move a3. I know this is passive, but it is a book move. It's the second most common line in this position, actually. So, and I knew this because I wanted to play my knight to c3, but I didn't like the bishop pin afterwards, getting sort of a Nimzo Queen's Indian hybrid. So to stop that, I went ahead and played a3. And this is called the Petrosian Variation. So again, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I found some decent moves. All right, and the bishop came to b7. The bishop can also come to a6 and challenge this diagonal, but this is probably fine. And here the main move is knight c3, which I did play. And then my opponent played bishop e7. So this is, it is theory, but it's only played 1% of the time. The main move here, surprisingly, is d5. My understanding is that you don't normally play d5 in the Queen's Indian. You look to play c5. So this must be a more unusual line here. But, because usually the fight is over the e4 square, though. So white usually wants to play, try to set up e2, e4. All right, but bishop e7. Yeah, and now the book move is d5, and I missed this, but it doesn't look natural to me. So d5, and the point being, after e takes d5, c takes d5, castles, I get e4 in, and this bishop is pretty bad on b7. And then after something like rook e8, bishop d3, c6, white can just castle here. And white sits pretty good in this position. So that's something to keep in mind for next time. Instead of this, I played the move g3, just desiring to counter this bishop on the diagonal. I didn't like, I was offering for the bishop to take my knight and double my pawns, but now I wanted to play queen c2, and this was just going to become something I have to always think about. So I chose g3, which the computer does not like at all. And it says after knight e4. Yeah, this is what you have to watch out for in the Queen's Indian defense. So my opponent could have done this because they own the e4 square right now. And pretty much you have to take. And this is just better for black. Black's doing okay here. I can play e3 here. I can play bishop h3, but black's slightly better in this position. All right, so maybe g3 was not accurate because it doesn't deal with this. All right, my opponent played c5, and this let me right back in the game, really. d5 is, again, the best move here. So it seems like getting this d5 advance in early, followed by e4, is really how white should play here, just grabbing space and grabbing the center. But I took the pawn, which is okay, and the bishop came out. I didn't mind doing this because the bishop already moved, so it has to move again. And I do have b4 on the menu. So I thought this is okay to allow this for now. I mean, it always makes me nervous to have the bishop aiming at this sensitive f2 square. But, you know, just keep an eye on it and you're okay with this kind of thing. So bishop g2 is my choice now, just trying to finish development. My opponent castled, I castled. And now, looking at my opponent's position, I think they have a problem because their knight needs to come out. So I would think that maybe d5 needs to happen just to get the knight out. Yeah, the computer also likes bishop e7, so I guess b4 is a threat right now. So it just wants to move the bishop out of the way so that doesn't become a tempo later. Yeah, now the computer likes d5 after all. So yeah, the problem is this knight. So this is a big problem in my opponent's position. And I think this is the first time I've played with the Fianchetto bishop in the Queen's Indian defense, but I actually felt much more comfortable with this. Worrying about this bishop without it being countered on g2 is annoying. But now that I have this bishop here, I don't really mind trading these off. That's okay. All right, so yeah, my opponent played queen c2, and I felt this is an error, and it is. It seemed like they were maybe x-raying this weak pawn here, which is undefended currently. So if they move their bishop, they have a discovery on this pawn. But this runs into bishop f4, gaining a tempo on the queen. So the queen moves back. And now I have to move knight b5. I'm happy I found this because it is the strongest move. And I think the reason's clear. Look how weak these squares are. So white has a nice initiative here. This square is especially weak, this d6 square. So my opponent decided to play knight e8 here. An interesting choice. I almost like this move. I saw it, but I also like seeing their knight retreat. I like both their knights being on the back rank. So I knew this is probably good for me, even though they're defending my threats here. And honestly, this d6 square is still available despite this, because I have 1, 2, 3 guys on it, and he only has 1, 2. So I'm actually doing okay here. I can invade on d6, and at the end of the trades, I'll have a queen here eyeing this weak pawn, which happens because the only way he's going to get my knight out is if he moves his a-pawn. All right, so he does move his a-pawn. Now this is actually a bit of an inaccuracy. The computer wants a5, which when I first saw looks weird, but the computer really doesn't want b4 to happen. So that's the idea there. But my opponent played a6. I guess this isn't horrible. But now knight d6. And trade, trade, trade. And at the end of this, I am attacking this pawn. And I also like that I'm eyeing the d pawn because the knight is required to continue defending this pawn, basically. The main reason being I can easily attack it again with my rook. So, okay. So white is doing good here. The computer eval is about plus 0.8. And I felt like that was probably true during the game. Just felt like my pieces are more coordinated. Black's sort of jammed up on the queen side here. And I have a very active and annoying queen. All right, so he wants to trade queens, and yeah, I'm not going to take that and help him untangle. That just seems ridiculous. So here, I did consider the move rook f to d1, so that if he takes, my rook takes the place of the queen. But after some thought, I decided to retreat, which the computer doesn't like that much. But this seemed okay. And black's knight is still having trouble getting out. All right, and he went back to c7. I guess not liking the discoveries, except these aren't real discoveries, because if I ever move my knight, like let's say I'll just put a move on the board. But if I move my knight, thinking that I'm going to do something there, that's checkmate. So luckily I did see that. I'm getting the feeling that my opponent didn't notice this though, given the fact they moved their queen back out of the way. That seems like a wasted move there. All right, and now I played rook f to d1, which is good. So tying down the knight to this pawn, essentially, is what's happening. And the rook comes over to defend. And now there's a clear best move in this position that I saw, but I didn't play. So white to move. What would you play? What's a very strong move here? And the answer is knight g5. So I do get this move in later in the game, but it's particularly strong right now. Black has no choice but to play g6, and this much I saw, but then the bishops get traded off. Queen takes b7. This always makes me a little nervous when my light squares are weak and the queen's bearing down like that. But I don't see how black does anything. All right, and then, oh, let's see, g4. Yeah, okay, so g4 is a way to continue, which I didn't see that at all. And knight e4 is a way to continue. And basically, white gets an attack here. The dark squares are really weak, so we're going to transfer our queen to the dark squares and use our knight to create threats, essentially. I'm not a super attacking player, though, I must admit, so I didn't go for this right away. I kind of like prepared for it first, you'll see. Which is actually a little inaccurate to do it that way. All right, so I played b4. This is not a bad move or anything, but maybe it is since knight g4 is so strong. Knight g5 is so strong at this time. All right, and my opponent played d6. So now their queen is sort of hidden back there, but I was looking to potentially trap the queen if I could by playing b5 and takes, and the queen would have been trapped. d6 untraps the queen. So now, yeah, h4. So I'm just preparing to attack now. I was thinking if g6, h5, and that could be uncomfortable. So now black does get the chance to pull their knight out. And now I take the time to play knight g5, which is still the best move in this position as well. I like the fact that my bishop wasn't being attacked here. So now we have a mate threat. So black has to defend. So g6. And now I made a big inaccuracy. And I'm not sure why I did this. I'm trying to remember why. But I decided to trade off the knight. Oh, you know what? I remember why now. I didn't like how active this knight could get. I was worried about it coming in like this, winning a tempo on my queen, and then it just felt like I was going to be dealing with that knight. So rather than deal with that, I went ahead and took, and this is a big mistake. Better here is h5 immediately. Yeah, and I'm just curious. So what if the knight does get active like I was afraid of? So let's say the knight comes in. Computer says, no problem, just play queen d4. And now you're on the dark squares. All right. And then the bishop gets traded off. Black does have this check now. Queen b7 check. But our king is safe on g1. And now queen e7 is the top move, or g takes h5. Yeah, I was definitely thinking this has to be good. Oh, it's black's move. I'm sorry. So queen e7. This looks dangerous, doesn't it? G takes h5. The best move. Yeah, but the knight is now defending the square. I'd really like my queen there. I guess I do have this though. Oh no. My king gets really exposed. Okay, anyway, let's continue. All right, so the bishop took back, and now I played the move b5, and I played this because it seems like black cannot take the pawn due to the pin on the bishop. And yeah, this is where the game takes a turn. So what black should do in this position is just retreat. Maybe just get the bishop there so they can take the pawn. And I don't think taking here does me any good. And in fact, the best move here is knight e4, offering a trade. But my my opponent made a big mistake here, and they took the pawn. So now c takes b5 is just crushing because I take back the pawn and the bishop is pinned to the queen. So black is going to lose this material. So now it's just a matter of trying to figure out how to win this position. And so I started, well, let's see, they played h6, chasing my knight out. And then I made kind of a weird call, but the computer doesn't hate it. Knight takes e6. So sacrificing my knight, because if he takes back with the pawn, I'm going to get this check. And I'm also, he has to deal with this, right? Because I'm attacking the queen. Yeah, so this is pretty much forced. And now queen takes g6 check. And I really liked how the king is stuck on the back rank here. And I'm pretty much going to win another pawn for my knight. And I'm still going to win the bishop. It's still pinned. So this just looked like an easy endgame to win to me. So, all right. So he offered a queen trade. And I probably could take this, and that would be fine, but I like this move better. So check and grab an extra pawn. He played king h7. And now I took the bishop, which is fine to do. Queen came back. And now I toyed with them a little bit, mostly because I wanted to figure out what to do. We were both getting low on time. All right, so it comes there. I could take this pawn here, but but I played rook c3. The reason being, I just wanted to go ahead and stop black's counterplay. They could take this pawn, but my other idea is I'm going to swing my rook in soon. All right, so the queen comes in, and I checked him, king g8, and yeah, queen e6 check is really good here. And now I missed a really strong move. So what do you think the strongest move is for white in this position? Yeah, so I continued with the move queen here, just offering a queen trade. And after this, I'm going to win this pawn. And I just have too much material. I should be able to win without too much trouble. But there's a stronger move here, and it's the move rook f6, with the idea that this is a huge threat, and there's no good way for black to get out of this. So they can play king h7 is the best move, but then, yeah, they're going to lose their queen. This just looks terrifying. Yeah, the best move here is, oh, I'm sorry, rook a7. But yeah, I don't know. This is just over. But I went for the end game. And sure enough, I win that pawn. And now I have this passed pawn in addition to just a lot of pawns. So I checked him just to get my pawn going. And here, black had to play king g6. By going here, he's now trapped on the back rank. And after c7 is played, this is completely lost because he resigned here, but now I can check. And this is pretty much just over. So that was the game. All right, so let's review what could be learned from this game. Well, one thing I learned is that in the queen's Indian defense, I have this break d5, which I wasn't really considering during the game, but d5 e4 is a good plan. I also learned that you can fianchetto your kingside bishop, and that I felt way more comfortable playing this way. I don't know if others would agree. Another thing I learned is I don't think I ever played this early a3 move either, but I really like the way that worked out. I didn't feel as uncomfortable as I normally do in this opening. All right, and then as we go to the middle game, what could be learned here? So I think a big lesson for my opponent would be they need to play d5 sooner. Their knight ended up just being trapped the majority of the game on the back rank, which also kept this rook from getting active. So I think this queen c7 move was a mistake, not only because I had bishop f4 winning a tempo, but because d5 is so critical to play. They were too cramped. Yeah, and this just let me get active right away. So I like the way I played this. All right, and here rook f to d1 was a better move. So yeah, retreating is a little bit sad, isn't it? I could have just developed my rook and allowed the queen trade if he wants. Yeah, and probably in this position, knight g5 was so strong. So yeah, that was a failure on my part to see how strong knight g5 was here. Although I'm only a 1500 player, so I can only see so much. I'm kind of okay with the way I played it. Okay, and I did find knight g5 here. Okay, and maybe a big lesson is this. There is no need to do this. This is a big mistake. Oh, and especially due to this move. So now there's a mate threat. So I basically allowed there to be a mate and one threat here. Now I have no choice but to play f3. And white's only slightly better now because of this. I allowed a bishop-queen battery. Luckily, my opponent didn't play this way, but that was a mistake for sure. Yeah, and I can't even claim that I played that well this game because I don't think this is a good move necessarily, this b5 move. I mean, it does set a trap, but I don't think it's healthy to play that way in chess. Really, you just want to find the best moves, and if you see a refutation, then don't play it. And bishop e7 is the refutation here. And now I just weaken my pawns for no reason. Like, I could play a4, but now he can just take, right? Well, I could still do this. Win a tempo on the queen, but this pawn's hanging now. Yeah, I don't know. This wasn't a strong plan at all. I don't know. I was definitely playing for the trap, which I think is a mistake to do that. Luckily, my opponent went for this. All right, and I like my sacrifice here. I don't know why I did that. It's not necessary or anything. Rook takes c6 is actually the best move here, which I totally didn't see. I didn't even consider this, though, because I wanted to create a pass pawn. So the sacrifice does work, though, so I'm actually happy with the way I played this part of the game. Yeah, and then lastly, if I had more time, I think I would have figured out how to get a checkmate here, or at least win the queen, because this move is really strong. So I failed to see this rook f6 move. But this is also fine. Yeah, and this is good. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the video. If you learned anything, let me know. Like if you're a lower rated player than myself, I'd love to hear what helps and what doesn't help. And if you're a higher rated player, I'm definitely open to advice and want to learn myself. So anything you can tell me is much appreciated. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.